very pleased to have with us Union Communications Minister, Mr. Jyotiraditya Scindia, who also has turned model, promoting his new ministry, the Ministry of Northeast, and you're actually now promoting their textiles, fashion garments, and that's a new role for you. First time model, or have you done it before, but you did it with aplomb the other day?
Well, first of all, thank you, Navika, for having me and here at this India Conclave. It's always a pleasure to be a part of your show. I must also congratulate you in terms of putting up a wonderful venue here at Bharat Mandapam. And funnily enough, this was exactly the venue where we hosted initially our International Telecommunications Union Conference 5 months ago, where we had delegates from across 150 countries, almost 5,000 delegates, the largest ITU conference in the history of the ITU. And also the same site where we had the Ashtalakshmi conference, the Mahotsav. And the whole idea of the Ashtalakshmi Mahotsav was to really exposition the capability of the Northeast, not only on a national scale, but on an international scale. Our 7 sisters and Sikkim, our 8 states, have a tremendous repertoire of capability, from arts, crafts, horticulture, floriculture, agriculture, industry, hydropower, across the board. And I think with the Prime Minister's sankalp of really making the Northeast the growth engine of India and the transformation that's taken place, to be really be able to expose the rest of the world to that opportunity, if you will. And handloom forms a very important integral part of it, both with eri silk, which is the ahimsa silk, as well as muga silk, which is called the golden silk. And I was quite amazed. We had 8 state designers from every single state that came up with an amazing collection of products. And then we had 20 national designers and international designers who again used eri and muga and came up with some amazing, amazing clothes. So I think the ability to be able to grandstand that across our country and give that platform to our local designers, really taking them onto the national stage, was part of that initiative. We also had a musical evening the day before. The Prime Minister graced the event by inaugurating it. We had 320 Kisan and traders from the Northeast who came up and set up their hut right outside Bharat Mandapam. And they sold out everything that they'd got from the Northeast. And it's just exquisite in terms of the capability and what they bring. Our Queen Pineapple from Tripura goes to Germany. When I was Civil Aviation Minister, my King Chilies from Nagaland were going to Dubai and everywhere else through Krishi Udan. It's actually an unbelievable story, and we're trying to bring the whole value chain and add value to it in terms of going forward.
Mr. Scindia, you talked about the Telecom ITU that you held here. The scale at which your government is able to do these things, is that scale something that you work on specifically as a strategy? Because I've covered the telecom sector since the mid-90s, and ITU, expos were held mostly in countries abroad, Hanover, Spain, Switzerland, Japan. Having that in India, is that a specific part of your strategy to be able to showcase and make India the destination as well as the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's extremely important to take, Prime Minister is very clear in his vision. As we move from our Amrit Kal to our Shatabdi Kal, and the goal is to have a Viksit Bharat The goal is to have an Atmanirbhar Bharat, and the goal is to have Bharat as a Vishwa Guru. And towards that end, there's a true two-pronged strategy. One is to take India to the world. And the second, more importantly, is to really bring the world to India. And I think the G20 was one of the most wonderful expositions of that. For the first time in the history of the G20, were you not confined to the nation's capital and the nation's business capital, but you spread events over 52 cities in a country. And now Brazil has tried to copy exactly that model. And same is the case with the ITU, as I mentioned to you, is the largest in their 70-year-old history that was held in India, the first one to be held in Asia. And it also speaks to the size of the Indian market. The fact that you have 116 crore subscribers today in India. The internet capacity has gone from 250 million 10 years ago to 954 million today. Broadband, which is greater than 2 GB, has grown from 60 million subscribers to 920 million subscribers. That's the scale that India has gone through. The amount of data that each individual one of us in this room and outside consumes has gone from less than 1 GB to 20 GB per month. And at the flip side of the story, the costs, it used to cost 51 paise per minute for a voice call. Today it's 3 paise per minute. 1 GB of data used to cost 280 bucks. Today it's 9 rupees and 18 paise. So costs have come down 97%. The size of markets have grown 20x. And India today has become a huge highway of communication. And communication today, and I was talking to Navika prior to coming into the session, is no longer an instrument and a box that we use for communication. It's become a part of life. Everything we do in our life today is centered around this dabba, this box. The way we bank, the way we purchase, the way we buy insurance, the way we buy goods, the way we talk to each other, the way we converse. And so it's become an integral part of how a human being lives their lives. And therefore providing that opportunity to 140 crore people so that they can blossom is the target that we've set for ourselves in government.
Absolutely. And with the digital payments platforms, it's changed completely the way.
Let me give you a little bit of a vignette of what that means. So in India today, you have per month close to 16,000 crore transactions that happen on the digital system. $280 billion worth. So the number of transactions are 16,000 crores. The dollar value is 280 billion, which means that on an annual basis, you're talking about upwards of $3.5 trillion. 46% of the world's digital transactions today happen in India. So when we talk about the fact that India is becoming a Vishwa Bandhu, this is one of the contributions that today we can make to the world. I was in Germany 2 weeks ago, and we talked about the digital capability of India. And countries like Germany, countries like Japan, we are way ahead of them in terms of transacting on a digital superhighway. And the UPI stack, our digital public infrastructure, during COVID days, our COVID application, even in countries like, in cities like New York City and in London, doctors were writing down on a piece of paper who's received a vaccine on which day to keep as your record. In India, on your phone, you were getting a digital certificate. That's where India has reached today. And that's our forte. And that's something we can take to the world. And that's where our soft power comes in as well. Because India does not grow at any other country's expense. India grows and makes the world grow with it.
Absolutely. But let me ask you, the telecom sector has seen a few hiccups and roadblocks in the past. Let's begin with, spectrum auctions. We remember the UPA days of the 2G spectrum scam, which was at one level a zero-sum theory. At another level, it led to cancellation of licenses. We're back to a situation where you've come out of the auction regime, which was supposed to ensure transparency and maximization of government revenue. Is there a thought behind this? Are you not worried that the same charges of giving this on a discretionary basis will rise again? Because this time, the man demanding it was Elon Musk. It's kosher to give spectrum without an auction.
So I'm glad you asked that question, and I think it's important that we understand the science behind spectrum, frequency, airwaves. So there's a very distinct difference between terrestrial networks and non-terrestrial networks. As far as terrestrial networks are concerned, when you're auctioning spectrum at a much lower frequency, that spectrum can be used by a single person, entity, corporation, or whatever. And therefore, that it is possible for you from an engineering standpoint and a physics standpoint to auction it. Because I can allot it to a Navika, or I can allot it to X or Y or Z, and no one else can use that frequency of that spectrum apart from you. When you get into satellite spectrum, so MEO, LEO, satellite spectrum, that spectrum is a shared spectrum. That spectrum at that height, at that level, cannot be allocated to a single person. So the question is, there is a scientific argument and then an economic argument. How can you auction something that is shared? You can only auction something that is committed to a certain individual. So satellite phones, for example, you have to point your antenna, and that's when you get the signal, and it keeps shifting. And so therefore that spectrum is shared, number one. Number two, if you look at across the world, every single country across the world, because of its physics principle, satellite spectrum is always administratively assigned. There is no country in the world which auctions satellite spectrum, because it's physically impossible to auction it. Third, this is something that has been debated ad nauseum and has been passed by Parliament. The Telecom Act that was passed in November of last year very clearly in its first schedule says, because of these very reasons, that satellite spectrum will be administratively allocated. Now, that's the regulatory process. Now you bring in the economic argument. How will you administratively allocate it? That pricing is not going to be on a FIFO basis. First in, first out, first come, first served, none of this stuff. It's going to be decided by the Telecom Regulatory Authority. We have a TRAI, we have a regulatory authority that assigns a price for that spectrum. That authority will assign that price. And based on that, the spectrum will be assigned to everyone that procures a license. We have today two parties that have a license in India. We have OneWeb or Bharti, and we have Reliance that have a satellite license. So whoever comes in, and India's doors are open for everyone, and complies with the requirements of the license, will certainly be given a license, and then separately be given the spectrum at the TRAI decided price, which TRAI will, in its best judgment, come to a conclusion on.
But Indian companies were opposed to this policy. Clearly, they probably felt that this was not the best way and put the Indian companies at a disadvantage.
So couple of things. One, technology like the screen that you have in front of you is ever moving, and it moves at a very fast clip. what is prevalent and what you deem is the needed technology may change tomorrow, number one. Number two, my job as communications minister is to make sure that my consumer, which is 116 crore people in this country, are able to access data and voice in every manner possible. And therefore, for me, complementarity is key. There are still parts of the country and 20,000 villages that require network to be set up, which is what I'm working on. By June next year, every inch of our geographical mass in our country will be covered by coverage. But I have to provide that complementarity to my customers. And satellite, mobile, OFC, broadband, VSAT, all of these are complementary technologies for me to be able to provide communications to my consumers. My consumers will decide what is the route they want to take. That choice is theirs, not mine or yours or any one company's.
Mr. Jyotiraditya Scindia, in your ministry, there have been two areas where a lot of debate has taken place on whether to run public sector BSNL. Is it the most efficient company? It's gone through its highs, maybe 2 decades back, and then seen the lows, a lot of capital infusion. Where does it stand today? Is it worth your while to keep pumping money into it, number one? And number two, what happens to the quintessential old times postal department? पहले ज़माने में डाकिया आता था. That era is over. But there are a lot of assets that the government may hold on that behalf. What are you doing to modernize both?
So two very, very, if you will, very large canvas questions. Difficult for me to answer in a succinct amount of time, but I'm going to take a stab at it. So first, BSNL. I think BSNL is on its path to rejuvenation. I think it's extremely important in a country like India to have a minimum of 3 to 4 providers of telecom service. And whether it was in my earlier avatar as civil aviation minister, that was my key push, that I must have 3 to 4 players in the civil aviation space. And similar here in the telecom space. The government certainly has done a lot for BSNL, but I think BSNL is now standing back on its own 2 feet. Just to give a little bit of an idea of where we are today, in the last 3 to 4 years, our revenues have increased by roughly about 12% to about 21,000 crores. Our expenditure has reduced by about 2% in the last 4 years. We are now EBITDA positive, which means we're making operating profits since 2021, which is when the revival packages were brought in place. We made an operating profit of roughly about 1,100 crores in 2021. Today we're making an operating profit of close to 2,300 crores. So we've doubled our operating profit. In terms of number of subscribers, we've been a little late in the game in terms of 4G, and purposely so, because the choice in front of us when 4G technology came in was either we, like everyone else, adopt foreign technology and bring in their core and bring in their radio access networks and put up their BTSs, or we go down the hard route, which is the Atmanirbhar route. And Prime Minister was very clear that if we want an Atmanirbhar Bharat, we must have our own 4G technology hardware and our own 4G technology stack. And I'm very glad to report to you today that we've not only built out our own 4G core through CDOT, which is a government PSU, but we've also built out our own 4G RANs through Tejas, which is a private sector Indian company. And the SI, the system integrator we have in place, is also TCS. So it's a fully holistic Bharat-India solution. And we've rolled out on this date close to 62,000 towers of Indian technology. So India is only the 5th country in the world to have its own 4G hardware and its own 4G stack. Now, by the time I roll out 100,000 towers, which will be by May or June of 2025, in the next 4 to 5 months, I'll also start switching some of my towers and my BTSs from 4G technology to 5G technology for BSNL. So we are well on the way of doing that. BSNL is also a part of the 4G saturation scheme, where we have close to about 17,000 towers to put up across the country, across 24,000 villages. We've already completed 30% of that, and I hope to complete that task as well by June of next year. So all of India will be covered. 100,000 towers of 4G of BSNL will be up. Conversion of 4G towers to 5G will have begun. The task will have begun by June of next year, and BSNL will also be back completely on its feet. We've put out almost 10 products within BSNL in the last 3 to 4 months, from span-free networks to direct TV, intranet TV, live into your homes. We are testing it out in Madhya Pradesh as we speak, to 5G as a service, to putting in place 5G value propositions for mining. So there's a tremendous amount of work that's going on within BSNL as we speak. And it's my fervent hope and confidence that BSNL will be back on its feet.
Well said, but there's a...
Correct. Then on Post. So you are right, and you are not completely correct, Navika. Post has a very, very special place in my heart, because that was the first charge that I had as a minister way back in 2006 as Minister of State in this department. And I had conceived a Project Arrow, which was really a BPR exercise, a business process restructuring exercise of the postal department, and changing the look and feel of how you see post offices today. So the new Swish sign and the new branding was all that I had thought of in 2006, 2007, and now it's all over the country. Having said that, the role of the Dakia has to transform. The role of the Dakia is not now something that's not necessary. I think it's extremely necessary. I do not think that any country in the world has the value chain pipeline that the India Post Department has. We have 164,000 POSs, points of sale, across the length and breadth of this country. This network, no one in this country has, and no one in the world has. I was just in Germany, and I visited DHL and saw their transformation. And India Post is going to undergo somewhat of that transformation. We have to move into really becoming a logistics corporation. We have to move into the e-commerce space. We've got to go digital. We've just hired a consultant for parcel and mail. We are looking at doing a BPR exercise within India Post. I have been working at it for the last 4 to 5 months. And it is my hope that in the next 3 to 4 years, we will become a citizen-centric services in terms of setting up POP SKs where passports are made. We've signed an agreement with the MEA today where we'll set up 600 more networks for passport seva kendras, hopefully servicing 1 crore citizens per year through our network. We'll also expand our postal life insurance and our RPLI. And of course, the mainstay has to be parcel, and move into much more of a logistic company, look at consolidating our mail sorting hubs, becoming a process-driven corporation. And I'm very excited working on that today with all my postal family as we look to transform India Post.
मिस्टर सिंधिया, एक सवाल है जो मैं इसलिए हिंदी में पूछ रही हूँ क्योंकि ये बहुत बड़े एक आम आदमियों की ये प्रॉब्लम बन चुकी है। ये जो फेक कॉल्स आते हैं, साइबर फ्रॉड हो जाता है। अगर आप कोई व्हाट्सएप कॉल उठा लो वीडियो से तो आपके बैंक से किसी के लाखों रुपए निकल जाते हैं। हाँ, ये प्रॉब्लम हम कैसे टैकल करें? देखिए
नविका जी, एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण प्रश्न है, क्योंकि टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ कई सारे डिविडेंड्स आते हैं, पर जितने डिविडेंड्स आते हैं उसी के साथ काफ़ी कुछ कभी-कभी फ्रॉड करने वाले लोग भी पहुंच जाते हैं। और उनको रोकना, फायरवॉल बनाना हमारा दायित्व भी है। गृह मंत्रालय के साथ हमने 1930 टोल फ्री नंबर भी इस्टेब्लिश किया है, जहां अगर किसी के साथ फ्रॉड हुआ या किसी के साथ चोरी हुई वहां रजिस्टर किया जाए। और करीब 10 लाख लोगों के 3,500 करोड़ रुपए की राशि हम लोग उस नेटवर्क से हम लोग बचा पाए हैं। संचार साथी और संचार पोर्टल के आधार पर जो चक्षु हमारा सॉफ्टवेयर है, जितनी भी कंप्लेंट्स आई हैं उसके आधार पर 2.25 लाख मोबाइल फोन्स को हमने डिस्कनेक्ट किए हैं। ऐसे 10,000 हेडर्स को हमने ब्लैकलिस्ट किए हैं जो गलत तरीके से अपना मार्केटिंग कर रहे हैं। और जो आपके फोन पर +91 का कॉल आता है, जो एक्चुअली देश का कॉल नहीं है लेकिन विदेश से कॉल आ रहा है, पर वो +91 के रूप में अपने आप को मैस्करेड करके आपके फोन पर पहुंच रहा है, तो उसके लिए हम लोग ने एक फ्रॉड डिटेक्शन सिस्टम सॉफ्टवेयर डीओटी ने अपने आप नवाचार करके उसकी शुरुआत की है, जहां एक दिन में हमने 1,35,00,000 कॉल्स को हमने ब्लॉक किए हैं देश में आने के अंदर से। और वहीं हमने टीएसपीज को भी मैंडेट किया है कि अगर स्पैम कॉल्स या फ्रॉड कॉल्स आए तो उनका भी दायित्व होगा इनको रोकने के लिए। तो कई पैमाने पर हम लोग ने बहुत सारे कदम उठाए हैं और इसके आधार पर हमारे जितने भी कस्टमर्स हैं उनको भी बहुत सारी राहत मिली है।
अब पॉलिटिक्स पे चलते हैं। आजकल आपकी बहुत नोकझोंक हो रही है लोकसभा में तृणमूल कांग्रेस के एमपी कल्याण बैनर्जी के साथ। शब्द ऐसे हैं कि मैं दोहरा नहीं सकती, एक्सपंज कर दिए गए हैं, पर ये कुछ पर्सनल आपके बीच में है, कुछ ऐसा हुआ जिसकी वजह से ये है, या इज इट पार्ट ऑफ द जनरल पॉलिटिक्स दैट वी आर सेइंग ओवर द लास्ट सेवरल months and years maybe, where confrontation has become the mode of communication?
देखिए, कॉन्फ्रंटेशन होना चाहिए। अंत में प्रजातांत्रिक प्रणाली के अंदर हमारे संसद के अंदर पक्ष और विपक्ष के बीच में मतभेद होने चाहिए और ये प्रजातंत्र में जरूरी भी है। मतभेद होना चाहिए लेकिन मनभेद नहीं होना चाहिए। और आज मैं मानता हूं कि प्रजातांत्रिक प्रणाली के आधार पर एक दूसरे के ऊपर नीतियों, विचारधारा, कार्यप्रणाली के ऊपर आप जरूर जो भी आप कहना चाहो, आप जरूर, स्वतंत्रता है और होना भी चाहिए कहने के लिए। लेकिन मैं मानता हूं, और शायद ये मेरा व्यक्तिगत असूल है, पर मैं 22 साल मेरा एक सौभाग्य मुझे प्राप्त हुआ है इस संसद में मेरी क्षेत्र की जनता के आशीर्वाद के साथ उनका नेतृत्व करने का। लेकिन 22 साल में मैंने कभी भी व्यक्तिगत टिप्पणी किसी के ऊपर नहीं की, क्योंकि मैं मानता हूं कि राजनीति की भी एक स्तर होनी चाहिए और मैं उसी को मानकर अपना व्यवहार संसद के अंदर पेश करता हूं। पर ये सभी की मान्यता शायद न हो, और अगर न है तो है, जिंदगी का खेल है। और जैसे अटल जी कहते थे कि ये भी सही और वो भी सही।
You've taken it in your stride. No rancor. Has he apologized? Do you need an apology?
मैं इस पे ज्यादा समय व्यर्थ नहीं करना चाहता, क्योंकि मैं मानता हूं कि थोड़ी मेरी एक आध्यात्मिक सोच भी है कि भगवान ने जितना मौका हमको दिया है सकारात्मक काम के लिए दिया है। रात गई बात गई, आगे का रास्ता और आगे का विकास और प्रगति के बारे में सोचो।
रात गई बात गई राहुल गांधी के साथ तो नहीं होती, उसके पीछे तो आप रोज पड़ जाते हैं, कभी सोरोस, कभी कुछ। हाउ कम ही इज योर पेट टारगेट?
नहीं, मैं मानता हूं कि जैसे मैंने आपको कहा कि प्रजातंत्र में नीति, नियत, कार्यप्रणाली, इस पर जरूर मतभेद भी होंगे और मतभेद प्रकट करना भी हमारा दायित्व है, क्योंकि अंत में हमारी एक विचारधारा है, दूसरे लोगों की अलग विचारधारा है। जनता के समक्ष अपनी विचारधारा पेश करना हमारा भी दायित्व है।
कभी तो आपकी विचारधारा उनके साथ मिलती थी, अब कभी फोन भी मिलता है या नहीं?
देखिए, मैं मानता हूं कि विचारधारा मिलना न मिलना ये अलग बात है, पर अगर देश की जनता के साथ आपकी कड़ी और आपकी सोच और विचारधारा न मिलती हो, आज की कांग्रेस पार्टी वो कांग्रेस पार्टी नहीं है जो पहली होती थी। और दूसरे तरफ हमारे प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी भारत को एक विश्व गुरु के रूप में स्थापित करना चाहते हैं। और अगर आपकी सकारात्मक सोच हो तो देश का एक एक सकारात्मक इंसान प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के साथ ही मिलकर काम करना चाहेगा।
जवाब नहीं दिया। कभी फोन किया कांग्रेस पार्टी छोड़ने के बाद, कभी मुलाकात हुई?
देखिए, मैं फोन किया न किया ये मेरा दायित्व, मेरी कार्यप्रणाली, जो मेरी भूमिका है, जो मेरी जिम्मेदारी है, उस पर मैं चर्चा करूंगा।
Well, on that note, when Jyotiraditya Scindia says no, he's not getting into that space, it is a no. But for sharing your views, Jyotiraditya Scindia, and speaking freely, frankly, and talking about the growth story of India and the miles that we still have to cover. Thank you very much for joining us here at this big platform of the 10th edition of the India Economic Conclave.
It's been a decade. Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And many thanks for your presence here.